Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into the story of the Weaver of Sleepthorn Hill. But before you settle in, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe only if you truly enjoy this kind of content. I would love to know where you are watching from and what time it is for you, so drop that in the comments. It's always amazing seeing people from all over the world tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe switch on a fan for that cozy background, and let's drift into tonight's story together. There is a fog tonight, not the kind that rolls in with purpose and urgency, like a night at full gallop, but the slow, yawning kind, misty and aimless, as if it forgot why it came. Not unless you like nettles, suspicious birds, and cottages where the windows blink when no one's home. Still, there's one house near the crest that people visit on purpose. They come when their dreams have gone sideways, when they've woken one too many times with a scream caught in their throat. They don't always admit it. They say they've come for herbs or a poultice, but they mean the coverlet. You walk through it anyway. Your feet press softly into a narrow dirt path just wide enough for secrets. Just a soft-spoken prediction, based on how sleep-friendly things are about to get. Elder, for example, was sacred and feared, said to be inhabited by the Elder Mother, a protective spirit who didn't mind helping you sleep, but did mind being cut down without asking. You imagine the weaver murmuring apologies to her shrubs before snipping anything. Or maybe she just bribes them with song. Against nightmares, sleep paralysis, and that old, awful feeling of something watching from the ceiling corner. Some say the pattern is a spell. Others claim it's all suggestion. Historians still debate whether these weavings were folk remedies, spiritual tools, or just extremely uncomfortable blankets that distracted you from your dreams. Brambles lean in like gossips, and somewhere in the distance, a sheep sighs as if remembering something it never quite understood, like something you once heard in a dream and forgot as soon as you woke up to chase a life you didn't quite choose. Welcome to Sleepthorn Hill. Yes, the name sounds cozy. It isn't. You probably won't make it through this day. That's not a threat. Now, before we go further, if you're here for history and maybe a nap, you're in the right place. You'll be needing sleep, she says, not unkindly. A clay pot simmers something with rosemary and a hint of onion, possibly soup, possibly potion, possibly whatever she had left in the garden. Gently press that like button if your fingers can be bothered. Subscribe if your soul is whispering more of this, please. It's hunched under a thatched roof, half covered in moss, and it smells faintly of lavender, wood smoke, and something oddly like toasted garlic. Inside, the air is warmer, dimmer. A single candle wobbles in its holder, like it's been awake too long. And if you're awake enough, tell us in the comments where you're listening from, and what time your eyelids started getting heavy. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You arrive at the cottage just before the sun remembers to set, and there she is. The weaver. She doesn't look up. Her loom clicks gently, like the ticking of a wooden clock that doesn't believe in time. You watch her fingers move not quickly, not slowly, but deliberately. They guide elderwood thread through a lattice of nettle and sheep's wool, and it makes a sound like rain starting on a window. In medieval times, it was believed that certain plants held dream spirits. Outside, the wind stirs. Leaves rustle like distant pages turning. People say the coverlets she weaves don't just warm you, they guard you. The weaver threads another strand and hums quietly. It's not a song you recognize, but it feels like you should. There's a small fire in the hearth, barely cracking, On a shelf above the hearth, a wooden spoon twitches. You ignore that. She finally looks up at you. Her eyes are the gray-blue of storm clouds that forgot to rain. You nod, though you hadn't thought so. Then sit, she says, and listen. The loom begins again, and so does the story. You sit on a stool that's somehow both creaky and soft. It welcomes you with the grace of something that used to be a tree, but always wanted to be a pillow. The fire sighs behind you. The weaver dips her fingers into a bowl of something thick and sticky beeswax, maybe, and coats the elder thread before drawing it through again. The smell is both sweet and stern, like a grandmother who bakes excellent pies, but judges your posture. Outside, the mist has thickened, baked with lavender, poppy seeds, and ash. People would place them under pillows. Not to eat. That would be silly. You can no longer see the gate or the idea of it. That's fine. You're not leaving for a while. This time slower, as if the story requires it. She tells you, in her quiet way, about the old charmers of the northern hills. He dozed. He tossed. But he never fell. The shadows it throws now stretch farther, longer, like cats finding sunbeams in reverse. But if you stare too long, they might show you something, or borrow a thought. You trace one with your eyes and find it leads to a dusty chest in the corner. You get the feeling that the coverlet being made is not for someone else, that it is, in fact, yours. The weaver smiles faintly, as if she expected nothing else. Carved into the wood are symbols you don't recognize. One looks like a fish. One might be a toe. Not into the deep part. For patience, she mutters. And because it was lying around, women who didn't call themselves witches, but who knew the shape of dreams and could mend them like torn sleeves. They believed in weaving intention into fabric, not metaphorically, literally. A thread for courage, a knot for clarity, a stitch for silence. You imagine what it must be like to sleep inside one of these dream nets. Would your mind feel held? Would the nightmares scatter like crows? Or would you simply drift slowly into a night so deep it forgets to end? And you wonder idly how many threads she's woven for people who never came back to thank her. Or whether she minds one of the more curious traditions from the 13th century. Sleep charms made not from cloth, but from bread. Yes, dream loaves. The loom clicks again. There was once a knight, she says, who couldn't sleep for 30 years. You blink. Not properly, she clarifies. She reaches for a dark green spool. This one is made of something that looks suspiciously like spun moss. He came to me on a mule with one eye and no name, left with a coverlet and a dream of birds, though I wouldn't trust his spelling. And, you ask, he still writes, she says mildly. The candle wobbles again. Those are dream sigils, she says without looking. How do they work? No one knows, she says, which is both helpful and not. You look away quickly. It is a strange thing, this place. Cozy, yes, but also woven through with the kind of logic that only makes sense while half asleep. She reaches down and adds a charm to the fringe, an odd little bone bead shaped like a snail. The fire pops. The candle gives up and dies. You feel your head nod once, twice. The weaver hums again, and you close your eyes. Just for a moment. The loom keeps clicking, and the thread continues to wean through sleepthorn and silence. When you wake or half wake, the cottage has changed. Or maybe it's just the light. Everything is wrapped in a softer version of itself, muted, muffled, as if the walls took a vow of quiet. Even the fire in the hearth seems to be dozing, reduced to a purring glow. The weaver is still at her loom, though the color of the thread has shifted. Now it's a dusty gold, like hay left in the sun too long. You try to speak, but your mouth feels wrapped in velvet. Not unpleasant, just inefficient. I added a strand of marigold, she says, eyes still fixed on the loom. Good for memory. Not yours, necessarily. You nod, the way people do when unsure if the conversation is real. Maybe it is just one of those dream chats, like the one where your high school math teacher turns into a goose and gives you relationship advice. Like a heartbeat under a blanket, the loom's clicking resumes gently. Everyone, and we do mean everyone, people, dogs, goats, the odd chicken fell asleep for nearly 3 straight days. No plague, no illness, just sleep. Tonight, or whatever time it is now, the story returns to the year 1262. A small village in the southern shires experienced what later chroniclers called the sleeping days. The realm of night was its own country, complete with landscapes, languages, and apparently taxes. One obscure Yorkshire folktale tells of a man who had to pay a toll to a dream troll every Tuesday or risked being trapped in a loop of Mondays. He eventually bartered with cheese. The troll accepted. The fringe twitches once, twice, like a cat deciding whether to pounce or nap. One monk's theory involved the moon being slightly too round. Historians still debate whether it was mass hysteria, herbal interference, or just a very boring sermon that spiraled out of control. It's all real, she says. Until it's not. Then it's folklore. Some claimed it was the work of a charm. Others blamed a rogue cloud of soporific pollen. You smile, and it surprises you. You hadn't meant to. You exhale. The weaver changes threads again. Some dreams ask to be remembered, she says, and some beg to be left alone. This one is blue, but not a color you've ever seen properly awake. It hums slightly, like it has a secret, and it knows it won't tell. From inside, a faint rustling like pages turning themselves in a forgotten book. She leans toward you, finally making eye contact. Behind her, the chest creaks open. You didn't see her touch it. Don't worry, she murmurs. That's just the dreamkeeper. You don't ask for clarification. You've learned better. It is a curious thing, how medieval folk thought of sleep not as passive, but as deeply active. A laugh bubbles in your chest, gentle and absurd. The weaver raises an eyebrow. Her fingers keep weaving. You notice the pattern forming a spiral that isn't quite a spiral. It pulls your eyes without force. Outside, a bird hoots, or maybe it's laughing. Inside, you feel the first true yawn arrive, long, deep, bone softening. It tastes like chamomile and dust. Good, the weaver says, barely above a whisper. You're softening. You don't know what that means, but you don't mind. You're lying down now. You don't remember lying down, but the woolen mat beneath you is too convincing to be metaphor. It smells of lanolin and distant grass, and it hugs your spine like a very polite bear. The weaver's loom has paused. She's stirring something in a ceramic bowl, small, rhythmic clinks that sound like secrets being crushed. Dream salt, she offers, not edible. Well, once. A thin green smoke rises, twisting in ways smoke shouldn't. You watch it form a shape. A house, a person, a tree with eyes. Then it unravels itself, like it was never serious about being understood. You accept that without comment. Her world is built on terms you're still gently bumping into, like furniture in the dark. She walks past you carrying a handful of dried nettle leaves, trailing a scent like rain after argument. She crumbles them into the hearth. Or maybe you're just not quite cursed enough. In the medieval mind, nettle wasn't just for dreams. I've added just enough sleepthorn. You blink. Some monks referred to it only as hushroot. Its recipes were passed in whispers, usually by people who then forgot where they put them. That's real? Of course, she sniffs. Or close enough. You feel the room tilt slightly, not in fear, but in permission. Everything seems to agree it is time. The threads now include something shimmering silver, possibly hair, possibly moonlight. She doesn't say, you don't ask. That some version of you has already slept under stars you haven't met. That's the rhythm now. Questions are fragile things in this space. You cradle them instead. It was also thought to drive away spirits, clear the blood, and make extremely disagreeable soup. And let the story take you further in. Children were sometimes lightly whipped with nettle to chase out nightmares, though modern scholars mostly agree this caused more tears than therapeutic outcomes. Still, the belief stuck. Pain could dislodge darkness, they thought, but some come from places not yet walked. A very medieval solution. Discomfort now, peace later. Its weight is beginning to settle into the room. You can feel it in your ankles, in the back of your neck. Even your thoughts are starting to lie down. The weaver doesn't whip you, for the record. She seems to prefer the gentler roots. She sets the bowl down and returns to the loom. Most dream threads come from memory, she says. You consider this. The idea that your future might already be woven into the fringe of a blanket. The coverlet is nearly finished. You'll dream soon, she says. Sleepthorn, as far as the few scraps of record suggest, was a name given to any herb that caused visions or intense drowsiness, often a blend of elder bark, mugwort, and something nobody quite identified. Historians still argue whether sleepthorn was a real botanical or just an umbrella term. Whatever made you see your grandmother's ghost feeding apples to the moon. The loom clicks once more. The coverlet shivers. She folds the finished piece over her arms. It is not beautiful, exactly, but it is certain. Like old stone, like truths told quietly. She lays it over you without a word. It covers you not just physically, but perceptually. Sounds grow deeper. Colors sigh into dusk. Sleep, she whispers. You do. You fall. You fall softly, like a leaf deciding it's finally okay to land. You are asleep, but not quite dreaming. This place where you now float is quiet, but not empty. It's a velvet pocket stitched into the lining of the world. Your body feels elsewhere, forgotten somewhere soft. Your mind drifts like an oarless boat. The weaver's coverlet hums faintly over your chest. It doesn't feel like fabric anymore. It feels like listening. You are not alone here. It wasn't a place exactly, more of a hallway where dreams queued up in a polite line. You weren't dreaming yet, but you weren't not dreaming either. In some parts of 14th century Bohemia, people would place a carved key beneath their tongue to unlock the right kind of dreams. There is a faint scratching, like pen on parchment, but too slow to be writing, and a rhythmic bell sound, as if a church is practicing breathing exercises. Shapes bloom and collapse in the dark. Some resemble faces. This part doesn't count yet. It's just the buffering. He hands you a piece of paper. It's blank. One looks suspiciously like your third-grade teacher holding a cabbage. You wave politely, just in case. You touch it and feel not wetness, but memory. It shows you a glimpse of your own face, not from a mirror, but from someone else's dream. You're smiling slightly, wearing a different hat, a curtain made of fog. Dream interpretation was a serious business, involving charts, diagrams, and occasional bursts of Latin. One obscure 10th century cleric even compiled a list of dreams he deemed too pointless to analyze, including a duck wearing shoes and endless buckets of lentils. These are tragically the most relatable ones. A sigh in curtain form. Don't worry, says a voice you don't hear so much as absorb. In medieval sleep lore, there was a concept known as the threshold. Birds whistle lullabies backward, and moss purrs when you step on it. You're still lying down, but now it feels like your body is also walking. Don't overthink it. He's wearing medieval shoes, those ridiculous ones with the curly toes, and a nightcap that flutters in the non-existent wind. My maps don't lead to places, they lead away from them. You pass through something now. Suddenly, a forest. But not just any forest, this one is stitched. The leaves resemble lace. The bark spirals like braided hair. The weaver is not here, but you sense her signature. A flick of pattern in the treetops. A spiral of nettle vine hugging a branch. You meet a man standing beside a tree with his own face carved into it. I'm the cartographer of forgotten paths, he says, puffing out his chest. You blink slowly. Exactly, he says, and wanders off into a bush that giggles as he disappears. People in the Middle Ages often believed that dreams carried real messages, sometimes from God, sometimes from ancestors, sometimes from the cheese they ate too late in the day. You reach a stream now, but the water flows upward. The stream bubbles. Keep going. You walk or float, or are carried toward a hill with a small wooden sign that reads, "This way to the center." NO shoes. Nitrogen monoxide questions. Nitrogen monoxide fish. You obey, because of course you do. Behind you, the forest folds itself away like a napkin after dinner. Ahead, something waits. And the dream deepens. You crest the hill barefoot. The grass is warm, like someone made tea with the ground. Your toes curl slightly. Not out of discomfort, just curiosity. Above you, the sky resembles a tapestry half finished. Threads dangle from clouds. You could probably climb them, but they twitch disapprovingly whenever you look too long. A house sits atop the hill. Small, round, familiar. It is the weaver's cottage again, but not the one you know. This version leans a little more. Its chimney whistles. You don't touch it, but it flips a page anyway. On it, a diagram of a brain annotated in ancient scribble, with arrows pointing the words like sorrowroot, laugh echo, and minor regrets. You nod like you understand. The book seems satisfied. Its windows blink slowly, as if waking from their own dream. The weaver appears, suddenly, from the folds of the curtain. Her eyes are moon-shaped now. No one is here, but the loom clicks anyway, and it's weaving you. But it helps. You drink. It tastes like stories you haven't told yet. Others are unraveled. You glance at the loom. Your image is fading. She hands you a cup of something warm and opaque. A kettle dangles from a weather vane, like it got lost and decided to stay. A lock of hair you once gave to a summer wind. Not just for you, but through you. Even the smell feels personal, somewhere between cinnamon and anxiety before a school recital. Becoming one with the coverlet, with the house, with the hill itself. You open the door, which isn't a door. It's a sigh pretending to be wood, and step inside. The threads look suspiciously like your old sweaters. A piece of your childhood bedsheet. One Benedictine monk recorded 342 dreams in a single year, including multiple encounters with a polite lion who offered him soup and scolded him for spiritual laziness. Scholars still debate whether this lion was metaphorical or just unusually chatty. A book lies open on a table. That moment right before a sentence starts. Before the kiss. Before the page turns. Fun fact, in the 12th century, several monasteries kept what they called dream logs records of nightly visions by monks. The fire in this cottage burns upside down. Ash drifts upward, curling like silver ribbon. You taste the air. It's full of beginnings. The coverlet is here again, folded neatly across a wooden bench. It watches you, not menacingly, just patiently. You sit beside it. Some dreams are stitched, she says. That's good, she whispers. That means it's working. Night milk, she explains. Not dairy, not anything, really. Your limbs begin to forget their shapes. You feel yourself dissolving into the stitching. And somewhere, behind it all, the loom keeps clicking. The dream continues weaving. You are still here, sort of. Your body no longer feels like a collection of limbs and decisions, but more like warm breath in a pocket of sky. You drift sideways through a memory that doesn't belong to you. A childhood in someone else's boots. A lover's whisper, spoken in a dialect of wind. You try to focus, but the dream laughs gently and repositions you like a dozing cat. You are inside a field now, but it's not a normal field. It's stitched from quilts, miles of them. Worn, patchy, sentimental, forgotten. They stretch in every direction, folding softly over hills. It's warm, not in a fiery way, in a living way. Each square holds a tiny embroidered scene. A window, a key, a bird that looks suspiciously like it's up to something. She's about 9, dressed in wool and wisdom, and she's holding a bundle of sticks tied with a red ribbon. You walk barefoot because the rules are soft here. A tune that has been playing since someone first tied 2 pieces of yarn together and called it hope. Threads snap like distant thunder. A soft rain of syllables falls from the heavens. You catch a few on your palm. A series of images flash across the sky like dreams on parade. A lost glove, a window left open too long, a name you almost gave someone. A needle of starlight draws in the edges. The field settles. One of them is your name, spelled wrong but felt right. A young girl waves at you from a quilt corner. For dream fires, she explains. You'll need one when the sky forgets itself. She hands you the bundle. Birch, elder bark, and sometimes charred pages from old songs. But it's not weather, it's memory. Some believed it tricked the bad dreams into thinking the child was already dreaming. Something else, preferably something boring, like cabbage farming. In parts of medieval Scandinavia, bundles of dream kindling were placed under children as beds to keep nightmares from finding them. You walk on. The girl vanishes into a patch of sunflower fabric. Above you, the sky begins to fray at the corners. Storm's coming, says a passing badger in his scholar's robe. He tips his hat. You nod, of course. The ground beneath you begins to hum. A song of thread, low and sure. The weaver's voice echoes in the fabric of the sky. Some memories hide because they re-shy. Others because they're still becoming. You sit on the ground well, quilt, and listen to the storm arrive. It's not loud, just insistently personal. And then, silence. The sky rethreads itself, slowly. The bundle of sticks in your arms begins to glow faintly. You are ready, though you're not sure for what. But the dream knows, and the dream continues. You stand now at the edge of a bridge, or perhaps it's a spine, long, curved, bone-white, and moon-kissed. It stretches over a gap filled not with water, but sleep itself thick and rolling and syrup slow. The bundle of dream sticks tucks itself under your arm. The bridge hums faintly beneath your feet, like it's remembering lullabies. Across the gap is a door, freestanding, wooden, weathered, waiting. Before you take a step, a small creature appears beside you. It resembles a hedgehog wearing spectacles and holding a clipboard. Dream inspection, it chirps. Standard protocol. You blink. You've got memory smoke in the upper left quadrant, residual regret sparkles, and ... cleared. Proceed with mild caution. It disappears into a yawn. One looks like your first childhood fear. The weaver is standing beside you now. How she got there is not relevant. It opens with permission. Permission from who? You ask. From you, of course. The bridge shifts slightly, like it's eavesdropping. It's always been yours. Dreams don't do arriving. They do being. The door grows closer, taller. You feel it watching, not in judgment, but in expectation. You give yourself permission, and the door opens. A golden thread, nearly invisible, loops around your finger. You hadn't noticed it before, and waits. You place your hand on the wood, or maybe you always did, but forgot to remember. It winks at you, but really, it's where the world comes to meet you. She lays a hand on the railing. It turns briefly into ivy. You politely do not wink back. Is that emotional pollen? Tisk, messy sleeper. These beings were described variously as goats, owls, or once, famously, a goose that wrote poetry. Their purpose? Mostly unclear, but apparently they enjoyed the paperwork. The hedgehog tuts and flips through imaginary pages. It stamps your forehead lightly with a paw. In medieval German folklore, it was believed that creatures called Traumwesen dream beings would occasionally monitor dreams, especially if they became too vivid or morally suspect. You begin crossing the bridge. Each step sends ripples through the dream syrup below. Faces appear in it, some familiar, some invented. Halfway across, you pause. Most people think dreams are where you go, she says softly. You'll reach the door soon, she says. It doesn't open with keys. She tilts her head. The weaver begins to fade again. Not vanish fade. Like a memory turning its face just enough to stay mysterious. Follow the thread, she says. You look down. You continue walking. When you reach it, the door breathes in. The coverlid around your shoulders shifts, almost imperceptibly. The door opens not with a creak, but a sigh. The kind of sound you make when you finally find your misplaced keys. A table stands in the center, though stands may be generous. It hovers slightly, resting on dreams too shy to become furniture. In the place you checked 3 times already. It swings inward to reveal a room with no corners. You hesitate. Every wall curves slightly inward, like a soft thought. No fanfare. Just a quiet tilt, as though something clicked into place far beneath the floorboards asleep. The light here is low and warm, like it's been awake a while, but doesn't mind staying up a little longer. Inside, the room smells like linen, cinnamon, and the idea of rain. On the table, a book, a bell, and a feather. This clearly is a test. The path that leads nowhere, but always feels like it's almost somewhere. The bench where someone once promised to come back. It never ends well. A familiar combination. The loom must be nearby. You emerge into a garden. The dream is winding in tighter spirals now. And you're at the center. A voice behind you, neither the weaver's nor your own, murmurs. Choose one to forget, one to remember, one to carry. Classic dream logic. Vague, poetic, and utterly inconvenient. You look at the feather first. It's not from a bird, you know. Blue with shifting specks of gold, and when you touch it, it hums a lullaby in your hand. Possibly in Welsh. The bell is old, tarnished, and quietly judgmental. The book, well, it doesn't have a title, and its pages are blank until you blink, and then they're suddenly full of stories you've already forgotten. You make your choice. Maybe it's the feather. Maybe it's not. Whatever you decide, the room accepts it. In medieval Italy, there was a belief that dreams could be catalogued not in writing, but in scent. People would sleep with bundles of herbs, cloth, or scented stones. Like it has done its part and would like a nap. If a dream was sweet, they'd keep the item. If it turned sour, they'd burn it at sunrise. Historians still debate whether this was symbolic purification or just early aromatherapy taken slightly too seriously. The room now begins to dissolve, not in panic, in comfort. You find yourself drifting again, this time through fog that smells faintly of rosemary and beeswax. Not just any garden, it is yours. Not in the real world, perhaps, but in some pocket of your mind. You recognize the tree that never bloomed. The weaver stands near the edge of the dream garden, clipping herbs with a blade made of moonlight and bone. Nice choice, she says, not specifying what you chose. Most people try to carry the bell. You sit beside a fountain full of stars. They blink at you lazily, like they've heard all your dreams before, and still find you mostly tolerable. You're almost ready, the weaver says. You don't ask what for. You sit by the star fountain longer than you think. Time here is less of a straight line and more of a hammock gently swaying, occasionally dropping apples. The stars inside the water begin to swirl, forming vague shapes. A door you never opened. A smile you didn't return. A version of yourself who still knows how to sing without checking the key. Dreams borrow from truth, the weaver says, crouching beside you. But truth borrows right back, so it's only fair. She hands you a seed, just one, round, smooth, and pulsing with a soft light. Plant it before you leave, she says. It won't grow here, but it will grow there. Dream logic. You nod, because that's all you can do. She raises a hand in a gesture that might be farewell or just acknowledgement. She is already fading into thread and silence. Eventually, you can feel its soft, gentle resistance, like the surface of water. On the other side, waking. You don't fall awake. You rise when you've forgotten you did it. Closed now. A path unwinds into darkness that isn't empty. It's full of possibility, of half-finished sentences, of warm blankets and the smell of morning toast. This is where I stay, they say. You'll go on. You don't open it. You don't need to. You tuck it into your pocket, which you now have. The garden begins to change. Not fall apart, just shift tone. The colors grow quieter. The trees lean in to listen. From a path lined with moss and question marks, a figure approaches. You recognize them instantly, even though you've never met. They look like an old friend from a life you never lived. Their eyes hold stories with your fingerprints on them. Ready? They ask. They take your hand not urgently, but certainly, and lead you through the garden. The weaver watches you go. Your guide leads you toward the edge of the dream. You won't remember all this, the figure says, not clearly. But parts will stay. They press something into your hand. It's the book from before. The figure stops walking. You look ahead. Before you step forward, a guide offers one last sentence. The thread is yours now. Weave carefully. You walk. You feel the dream begin to unspool behind you, gently, respectfully. You awaken slowly, as if sleep itself is reluctant to release you. The room is dim. The fire in the hearth has ebbed into a low, red murmur. Your limbs are reluctant passengers, slow to return to themselves. The coverlet still lies across your chest, warm with a softness you can't quite name. It hums, but only barely, like a lullaby finishing its final note and bowing out. The weaver is there, of course. She's stirring a small pot with a spoon made of bone and brass. The smell is familiar. Nettle, clove, something faintly floral and defiantly not edible. Made from honey, herbs, and steeped fruit, they were believed to anchor the soul after wandering too far in sleep. One recipe called for stirring the mixture only with twigs from a tree struck by lightning. This tradition died out when people realized lightning wasn't especially cooperative. I stitched a charm into the lining, she adds, offhandedly, for safe passage, just in case. You visited some of those. She tastes the brew, makes a face, and adds a pinch of something that sparks on contact. She shrugs. That depends on how well you sleep. When you're ready. You glance at it, then back at her. You went far, she says, not looking at you. You nod, which feels more honest than speaking. I'm stitched in. The coverlid slips off your shoulders and folds itself neatly at the foot of the stool. A breeze, subtle and cinnamon-scented, passes through the cottage. The weaver calls softly, just before you touch the handle. Plant the seed. You nod and step through. Small, carved with the same symbols from the chest. A fish, a toe, something that might be a question mark wearing a hat. There are places in dreams, she continues, that even the dreamers aren't allowed to keep. Her smile is thin and mildly amused. He always gets lost, that one. Helpful and very specific, mostly inconvenient ways. Outside, the fog has returned. Or perhaps it never left. You can hear it pressing softly against the windows, like it's curious whether you worth remembering. You spoke to the cartographer, didn't you? She asks, finally turning to face you. She brings you a mug. The drink is warm, sweet, and surprisingly heavy. Like tea that's been thinking about itself for too long. Not all, not clearly, but enough. In medieval Russia, dream drinks were common in folk rituals. The coverlet stirs gently around your shoulders. You notice the threads have changed, somehow darker, deeper, woven with the color of whatever dream you just left behind. The weaver leans against the wall. Most people forget, she says, but you'll remember enough. A pause. Passage to where? You ask, your voice a hoarse whisper. The candlelight flickers. You notice a door you hadn't seen before. That's the waking door, she says. You won't come with me? The weaver gives you a look both kind and just a bit pitying. I never leave. A thread unspools lightly from her sleeve. You don't mention it. Instead, you finish your drink. You rise slowly. You step toward the door. The world you return to is quieter than you left it. Or maybe it just feels that way after so much time in the stitched between. The ground is solid beneath your feet, earthy, cool. Grass brushes your ankles like a memory with good manners. The fog is thinning, slowly unraveling into gold-struck mist. You're on Sleepthorn Hill again. The cottage is behind you now. Or maybe it's gone. The earth yields easily. People buried locks of hair, threads from wedding garments, broken bits of glass or bone. It wasn't about magic. It was about leaving something behind to whisper, gently, I was here. You plant the seed. No words, no explanations. Just the soft sound of footfalls on damp grass. Eventually, they stop. Nothing happens. Which is exactly what should happen. It doesn't matter. You're not meant to look back. Dreams are fragile when stared at directly. In your palm, the seed still rests. Small, unassuming, pulsing faintly, like it remembers being part of a star. It's not labeled, but it calls to you all the same. A hollow beneath a crooked birch tree, beside a flat stone that resembles a sigh. You walk until you find the right spot. You kneel. In ancient Wales, there was a belief in quiet planting, the act of burying objects during transitional moments. Not for growth, but for memory. You press the soil closed. Behind you, something stirs. Not a sound exactly, just a shift in the air. You turn and find the figure from your dream garden. Before you part, they reach into their coat and pull out something wrapped in cloth. They hand it to you gently. It's heavier than it looks. The old friend who never was. They smile, not as someone who stayed behind, but as someone who has always been watching, quietly, from the periphery of memory. You walk together. I go no further, they say, but you can. When you unwrap it later, much later, you'll find the book from the dream room, still closed, still waiting. You take the path downward, toward the waking world. The sky begins to lighten, though it isn't quite dawn. Birds begin to call out gently, as if not to startle the dreams still lingering on your shoulders. You reach the village road just as the first baker lights his fire, and in your pocket, something hums. Not a memory, not a charm, but thread, golden, familiar, yours. The village is waking, but you aren't quite ready to join it. You sit beneath the low awning of a shuttered bakery, the wood still damp with night. From inside comes the soft thud of dough hitting wood and the hush of flour being whispered into shape. A cat meanders by and offers you a look as if to say you look different, then disappears beneath a cart without waiting for confirmation. The breeze smells of rosemary and sleep. Your fingers find the golden thread again, now looped gently around the edge of your coat. You didn't tie it there, but of course you did. The sky above stretches, wide and yawning, with a faint pink flush like it's embarrassed to be awake so early. You reach into your coat pocket. The book is still there, untitled, still closed, but heavier now somehow. It's not smooth, real, not dreamed. The leaves soft and green, the stem wound into a small spiral. tied with nettle twine. And you walk on, carrying your thread. You smile, not because it makes sense, but because sense isn't the point anymore. The grain feels like fabric, familiar, as if the cover itself was stitched by the same hands that wove your dream, like it's absorbed something from the dream you left behind. You run your fingers along the cover. In medieval southern France, it was believed that books could trap dreams. The seed buried under the crooked tree. Scribes would sometimes sleep beside manuscripts to infuse them with visions. Most of those scribes went on to write very strange poetry involving bees, saints, and sandwiches. When you open your eyes, you find something at your feet. One even claimed to have dreamed an entire grammar system that turned out to be Albanian. Historians still debate whether this was genius or just a highly specific cheese dream. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, just to remember the weight of it. The field of quilts. The cartographer with the empty map. The weaver's voice threaded into everything. A sprig of sleepthorn. You tuck the sprig into the fold of your coat and rise slowly. Your bones feel a little older. Your thoughts a little gentler. The village bell tolls once, absent-mindedly. The path out of town curls lazily between fields, hedgerows, and sleepy livestock who regard you with a casual suspicion reserved for early risers. Somewhere nearby, a rooster forgets how to crow, tries again, and gives up. You pass under a crumbling stone arch, tangled in ivy and old gossip. Beyond it, the edge of the forest. Yes, that forest. It's quieter now. Less stitched, more grounded. Coverlet weave. One of hers. You press your palm against it. It hums faintly, a resonance you know now from the inside out. The golden thread tugs faintly from your pocket, not with urgency, but direction. No words, no ceremony. Just the quiet act of witnessing. And that is enough. Tucked into the ledge are bits of ribbon, faded paper scraps, a half-burnt candle, and of course, a single piece of old cloth. You follow. The trees sway without singing. Then, the pages flutter as if breathing. Somewhere in the distance, a loom clicks once. The moss doesn't purr, but the air still remembers you. You step onto the path and feel it settle around your feet like an old story resuming its rhythm. Not far in, you find a small shrine, wooden, weather-worn, carved with symbols you don't recognize, though one definitely looks like a dreaming goat. That if you left behind something real in object, a name, a piece of yourself, it would be remembered by the world. Woven into the next storm, or the bark of an old tree, or the footstep of someone who never met you, but somehow knows. Not just any cloth. The book in your coat shifts its weight. You place it carefully on the shrine. For a moment, nothing happens. The thread around your coat unspools and loops gently around the shrine, tightening like a knot drawn by memory. In medieval Brittany, it was said that dream stitchers could mend more than sleep. They could repair forgetting. The wind shifts. You feel something in your chest loosen like a thread, finally letting go of a snag. You walk away from the shrine, lighter. The path dips down into a clearing. At its center, a small patch of earth turns gently by hand. A tiny green sprout stretching upward. The seed. You kneel beside it. The sprout bends ever so slightly toward your hand, not seeking touch, but acknowledging presence. Around it, the earth seems warmer, as though it remembers the dream you buried there. The sky above is wide and blue, but not the kind of blue that shouts. It's a hush blue, a quilted blue. The sort of sky that has been watching you this whole time, quietly recording, like a patient scribe who prefers the margins. Perhaps a raven, perhaps something else. It circles once and drops something from its beak. It lands beside you, a spool of thread, the same golden hue. The coverlet was real. The dream was real. And even if it fades, it left something behind. A stitch in you. You feel it in your fingertips, your temples, the space behind your heart where quiet lies. Night stretches her shawl across the hills and tucks the last corners of the day into sleep. The stars begin to appear, not all at once, but slowly like shy guests arriving fashionably late to a quiet gathering. Every breath in is peace. Every breath out, a release. You're not holding anything anymore. You smile. The thread is yours now. A gentle footstep across dream-soaked soil. A listener who became the telling. You stay for a while. How long is hard to say. Fading gently into dusk. Sleep well now. I'll keep weaving. Let your body grow heavier. Let your thoughts float like ash above a fading fire. Let the quiet carry you. Let the dream continue. Even here, especially here. Good night. Time has softened its edges here. The breeze doesn't measure minutes. It merely suggests them. You lie back against the grass, with a word, with a pause, with a blanket folded just so, or a story told gently over warm bread and flickering light. You feel the coverlet within you now, not draped over your shoulders, but stitched into the way you breathe, the way you remember. It lingers like the last notes of a lullaby, sung by someone who never told you their name. A shadow passes overhead. You glance up not startled, just curious. Somewhere, a bird trills a single sleepy note before tucking its head beneath a wing. The trees whisper again, not words this time, just sound, a hush passed gently from branch to branch, like an old lullaby, too tired to finish its verse. It's a bird, and with it, the quiet knowing. You can stitch peace into the world wherever you choose to rest. Historians will never agree on the truth of the weaver. Some will call her myth, some metaphor, some misremembered herbalist with excellent branding. One 19th century folklorist dismissed her entirely as rural nonsense and was promptly haunted by nettles growing through the cracks of his study floor. Coincidence? Possibly. But you know better now. You lie beneath the sky, the grass soft beneath your back, the earth breathing in rhythm with your own. The warmth from the dream hasn't left you. It lingers in your bones, like the fading heat of a fire that warmed more than just skin. Above, the sky darkens slightly not in fear, but in permission. And you softly stitched into the world now are no longer separate from the story. You are thread and memory. The weaver's voice is almost gone, but if you listen closely, you can still hear her.